What's the next 5 to 10 years? Demand for video and voice integration. I think people have said, hey, text is great, but how do I continue to make a multimedia experience actually happen? Because we know we humans definitely like to see other humans. We like to interact with things that are much more rich. So those rich media experiences are going to continue to add value as we go forward. The business shift to cloud services, this will continue to accelerate. We already see a significant amount of change here in India. Worldwide, it's absolutely on the rise. We will continue to see that mix from on-premise move to the cloud. The increased consumer influence on IT, a very, very important thing. I think we'll continue to see this. We'll see, and the natural challenges will occur. I don't think we have the answers to all of them, but it's something that we'll continue to see and we'll have to sort through as an industry as we go forward. The rise of proprietary marketplaces. We've seen this, right? We've particularly seen this on the consumer side. And we'll sort of see those proprietary marketplaces continue to be places where people say, hey, how do I get the application? It sort of flips the world around and said, hey, I need to get something done and I go to a marketplace in order to get that done. So how do I find that application that helps me get done what I need to get done? Advances in natural user interface. We launched about a year ago, the Connect, which allowed for gesture-based control. There's a whole bunch of other stuff from a speech perspective, touch, that have continued to happen. As we see the ability of technology to drive that forward, we'll see natural user interface continue to grow. And then contextually and situationally aware software plus services. I think this is the first step, in many cases, to what Ajay was talking about earlier, is how does a machine know where you are, what's happening, what's the event that then triggers the implication of something, and then take action on it without it being directed. And I think these things are starting to happen. I think we'll continue to see more of it, and we'll start to see more of these processes automated as we go forward. So I think these are the sort of big trends we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years. So through all of those, we sort of see these 8 things being the broader trends that will shape the industry over the next 20 to 30 years. And they're all sort of major elements where a lot of R&D and research are going in. A lot of you probably are working on some of these and exploring them. But we think they're actually the foundational elements to getting to that end vision that Ajay talked about, right? There are going to be these foundational elements that have to be worked on, so we push them forward. Computing power and storage. I think that one's a simple one. We all sort of know that will continue to go down. Chips will get faster. We'll put more cores on stuff. We'll figure out different ways to have them drive. We'll figure out how we manage all the storage and the data that we've got. Pervasive displays. Those displays, we're going to have to see them become cheaper, more flexible, lower cost. We're going to have to make sure that we see those things that happen anywhere. They'll have to change in size and shape. We currently only really have 2 or 3 models, but I think you can sort of imagine a world where that will continue to grow. Location sensing, right? The world today, right now, in a very simple way, if you think about Foursquare or checking in on Facebook or anything, is about saying, hey, I'm here, my phone knows where I am, and I'm doing something. But if you think about the next set of the world where it says, hey, I'm at a restaurant, and my mobile phone knows that I'm diabetic, and the menu that I see is customized to me, because it knows where I am and what I'm supposed to be doing and what it would look like. How do we then start bringing those kind of scenarios into location sensing? It starts blurring the lines between some of these trends. Natural interaction, will continue to drive those things forward because humans will want to interact in the way that we want to interact. Being limited by a keyboard or a mouse or even touch. Touch in some cases is not completely the immersive experience that we would like. And in many cases, depending where we are, it's not the easiest way to do it. If you're in a car, touch doesn't seem to work. You probably need to do voice. You probably need other methods in terms of interaction. We'll continue to get better at those set of things. The social networks. I know that's probably been a huge conversation over the last 3-4 years. I don't think 10 years ago anyone would have thought Facebook would be as big as it is now. But my experience from a social network perspective is they are absolutely separate from each other. These are things that don't actually have a way to communicate with each other. And from a user perspective, it's not logical, right? It doesn't actually help me do what I need to do because all of my information is in many different places. depending upon my personal social network that I live in. And so how will that change as we go over the next 5 to 10 years, and those things will come together so they make it more obvious in terms of how the world will work and how I will be able to get done what I need to get done, as opposed to be driven by an application or a service or anything like that. The thing that really struck me was the kind of things we talk about today, applications, devices, platforms, is really in the background. The technology is in the background. The person is the center point. The activity that the person's doing is front and center. What are the 3 big things that really enable that to be the end state where we're trying to get to? And it's these 3 things. 1, human-centric computing. 2, natural user interface. And 3, client plus the cloud. Right? So on human-centered computing, computers become more like an insightful human assistant. And so you saw a couple things there where the boarding pass shows up when she's sitting on the plane, or it knows to translate the Hindi to English at the very beginning with the school children in this classroom. Those kind of things where you say now the computer will do things for us and be able to determine what's the next step to action. In many cases, I don't have to be involved. The natural user interfaces, right? It was just very interesting. You saw a whole bunch of stuff. There was gestures, there were screens everywhere, right? Everything was a screen, everything was a display. It didn't matter where it was and how it worked. And the way that people wanted to work with those things, whether that was with touch, whether they were gesturing, whether they were using a device, that all was very, very easy and very useful for the specific scenario being played. And then client and cloud is sort of you saw it in there, which said, hey, these people meet for coffee at the airport, and their conversation history is there, but they're not worried about where that data sits. They're not worried about where it resides or any of that at all, right? We all have those problems now from a compatibility perspective, or actually getting access to the things that we need when we need it. But that's all available because the cloud is there, my data is available, and I actually can look at it wherever I am, however I need to. And so it becomes the fundamental elements for what we see is sort of sparks up the vision. And if you think about all of these elements, natural user interface, right? How do we think and make it useful to the end user? Leveraging the cloud and the possibilities for endless compute power that'll be available. And then really, really robust models for how these technologies will work. I think what I just wanted to finally share is an implementation of that, which is, I think, the beginning of the road to get there in terms of how we sort of see it. And it's a product that we bought many years ago called Microsoft Tell Me. And Tell Me is our speech platform. It currently is a cloud application. It shows up in a variety of places. It shows up on the Windows Phone. It shows up in Xbox. It shows up in cars. It shows up in part of Ford Sync. It actually shows up in a number of places. If you call American Airlines or a number of different companies around the world, it shows up there. So it's a true cloud service. But the interesting thing is, so we store about 3+ terabytes of data every week, right? This is utterances, sounds from humans talking into a machine. Translate that and analyze that information. That says this utterance means this, and that intention made something else. And then we continue to tune the logic inside that platform, which says if a customer calls or someone asks for a music or a movie or whatever, the system will catch it 95% of the time. It actually improves itself. It is machine learning. And so this speech platform, as we continue to get more and more utterances, the quality and the fidelity actually improve. And so we're implementing this right now. It actually works. And you can sort of imagine what that data will do as we continue to say, hey, let's make sure we understand speech and what people say, the intent of what they meant, right? Translate that into machine language, and then take action on it, right? And building that database all together and doing it from a speech perspective really sort of helps to get to that the predictive state that we want our computers to get to. So I'm going to share an example of this, which I think is a good way to sort of highlight it. And I think from a technology standpoint, the one thing that we can all be sure of is that we will change. The next 30 to 40 years for our industry will be even more interesting and better than the last 30, 40 years. And I think collectively, if we continue to work on it, we'll all make that a true reality. Thank you very much.